I'd like to share a reading from the Bible before I get to the message. And I'm reading from Luke chapter 1 as we really begin sharing the Christmas story. And this is the angel Gabriel visiting Mary to tell her she's going to have a special baby. In the 6 months, the angel Gabriel was sent by God to a town in Galilee called Nazareth, to a virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. The woman's name was Mary. And he came to her and said, "Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you." But she was much perplexed by his words and pondered what sort of greeting this might be. The angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus. He will be great, and he will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give to him the throne of his ancestor David. He will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." Amen. On Wednesdays during the season of Advent, I'm leading an online study group, and we're looking at the Christmas story, but in a slightly different way. We're looking at the Christmas nativity scene as we all know it, the manger and the Holy Family and the shepherds, the wise men, the angels, and we're asking the question, is this really what it was like? And we're not doing it disrespectfully or with an eye to harm anyone's enjoyment of one of the great symbols of the Christmas season, but just in an attempt to understand it better from a historical point of view. And one of the questions I asked at our first session was this. The Bible tells us that there are angels in the birth story. But did the angels have wings? Now that might sound like a frivolous or a silly question, and I'm sure your knee-jerk reaction is to answer, well, of course they had wings. They're angels. I'm sure you're probably thinking every picture I've ever seen of Bethlehem includes at least a couple of angels hovering above the stable. Or how about the scene on the hillside with the shepherds and all those angels filling the sky, telling them to go to Bethlehem? And every pageant that we have has always been filled with angels. In fact, doesn't every church-going parent of every little girl look forward to the day when their little angel can be a real little angel in the Christmas pageant with a white robe, a halo, and wings? Of course, angels have wings. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but there's a good chance that they don't. Let me clarify that. They might, but the Bible never mentions them. There are definitely angels throughout the Bible. This we know. But when angels are mentioned, they almost always appear in human form. In fact, they're usually indistinguishable from a human. Such as in the Old Testament when an angel appeared to Sarah to tell her she would give birth to a baby in her old age. The angel was so human that they invited him in for dinner. But let's go back to the Christmas story. What about the angel Gabriel telling Mary she will have a baby, what I just read? Or the angels appearing on the hillside? Well, surely those angels had wings. Maybe, but the Bible never says that. If you read the story carefully, it doesn't say anything about wings or halos or any of the other things that we associate with angels. It says, and the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary. And it says of the shepherds, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host. Oh, there are angels in the Christmas story, but maybe no wings. So what happened to change how we view angels? History happened, art happened, the Renaissance happened. Some scholars believe that the concept of moving angels from human-like messengers to divine flying creatures started about 200 years after the death of Jesus. The early church started to organize angels into things like guardian angels and archangels, and angels were given a heavenly status. Well, if angels lived in heaven, it made sense that they would need a mode of transportation to go back and forth, so why not give them wings? But others believe that it was a result of Roman influence. For example, the Roman god Mercury was considered to be the messenger god, and he was always depicted with wings near his head. Well, angels are messengers of the Christian God, so it's only right that they would have wings too. You got to keep up with the Joneses, or in this case, the Romanses. But it was the Renaissance period, around 1400 AD, that angels really took off in artwork. It seemed like every artist, from the great masters all the way down to the street artist trying to earn a buck, were painting winged angels. It was the first time they were portrayed with long white robes and given gentle, beautiful faces, which over time began to appear feminine, giving rise to the understanding of angels as females, dressed in white and adorned with wings. And suddenly, we have the modern-day depiction of angels, which really hasn't changed at all in the last 600 years. Don't get me wrong, it's lovely, and such a cherished symbol of the Christmas story. It's a cherished symbol of my own family Christmas story. At home, we've got a beautiful white angel on top of the Christmas tree with the robe and the halo and the wings. And although it's been many years, I know my heart soared when my daughter Rachel first put on that little white angel dress and wings in the Christmas pageant, and I wouldn't want it any other way. And like you, I absolutely love artwork that depicts angels. I find them inspiring and uplifting. Angels and Christmas go hand in hand. But what we've come to depict as angels really is, it appears, a modern post-biblical construct. Does it matter if angels have wings or not? Maybe a little, and I'm going to get back to that. I think what matters more is the question, do angels exist at all? What do you think? Are there angels among us? Beings of another realm who watch over us or watch out for us, appear to us, maybe even step in to help from time to time, kind of like a guardian angel. Now that's a better question than whether they have wings. You know, it's times like this where I'd love to be able to go through that camera and take a microphone and find out what you think about angels, because I'm sure you've got your ideas, and I'm sure you've got some pretty interesting stories. If you're not sure if you believe in angels, let me ask you this. Have you ever had an experience in your life in which you exclaimed, wow, someone was sure looking out for me? I've always thought that if there are angels, and if there was an angel school somewhere that teaches angels how to be angels, I'm quite sure the teacher would tell them that they will know when they've done a good job when a human under their care proclaims, wow, someone was looking out for me. Those words are like the gold medal for an angel. And if you've experienced a moment like that, you might be more inclined to wonder if angels do exist. I've told this story a couple of times before, but I'll never, ever, as long as I live, forget this experience. It was the winter of 1994. I was going to school at the University of Windsor. I was at Teachers College. Lori and I had been going out for about a year, and she was living in London doing an internship there. So on weekends, I would drive from Windsor to London to visit her. Well, one winter's day, I left Windsor in the sunshine, got to Woodstock, and ran headlong into what was like a wall of snow. It was a full-scale 5-alarm snow squall blowing off the lake right across the highway. I was gripping the steering wheel until my fingers felt like they were going to fall off. You know what that's like. I was following the tail light of the car in front of me. They got dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and finally, I couldn't see them anymore. I had no idea if I was in a lane, if I was on the shoulder, or if I was in a field somewhere. I felt gripped with terror, and I did what everybody does when they're gripped with terror. I prayed. Did I ever pray? And all of a sudden, I felt this warm feeling all through me, as if something had taken hold of me. It was a peaceful feeling. It was a calming feeling. And although I could see my hands gripping the steering wheel, I couldn't feel them. It was as if something else had taken control of driving the car. And I sat there in this calm bubble, almost feeling like I was being chauffeured. This lasted for about 10 minutes until I drove out of the snow squall in one piece, and then it was gone. There were no wings, No white robe, no halo, no greetings, favored one, but I felt in the presence of the divine in a way that I never have before and I never have since. I remember speaking to a psychologist friend of mine who said, "Oh, well, you just experienced disassociation, your body's natural reaction to overwhelming fear." I said, "Well, you want to call it disassociation, go right ahead, but I know what it felt like to me, and I'm going to go with that angel theory." You know, who knows what happened in that car? But in that moment, it felt like an angel. It really felt like an answer to prayer in what was the scariest moment of my life. And guess what I said when I got to Lori's house? Wow, someone was sure looking out for me. And that angel got his or her little gold medal. Mary Baker Eddy said this about angels: "When angels visit us, we do not hear the rustle of wings, nor feel the feathery touch of the breast of a dove, but we know their presence by the peace they create within us." And that's exactly what I felt in that car, a sense of peace that I have never felt before. Maybe on a snowy drive, you've experienced something similar. Or maybe you had another experience in which you felt yourself in the presence of something that made you feel at peace. And if you have, I'm sure you're more willing to open your heart to the possibility that angels do exist. And if you have your angel story, you know what? I'd love to hear it. Please send me an email. Let me know. I'd love to hear what you think. But let's go back to where I started for a moment and take a slightly different angle on angels. See how we did that, by the way? Angle, angels, switch those two letters. Pretty smart, eh? So if we get rid of the white robe, the halo, the wings, the ability to fly, it paints a very different picture, doesn't it? We wonder, therefore, what the angel Gabriel who visited Mary really looked like. And I know this is shocking, but he could have looked just like an ordinary person, just like you or just like me. And those shepherds who were visited by a heavenly host, I know we love to think of the sky filled with beatific angels, filling the sky with light. Or was it just a group of people telling them to make haste and go to Bethlehem? I know I'm stealing some of the visual magic of the story, but bear with me. Because when we do that, we can actually begin to get to the real meaning behind them. The word angel means simply messenger. The angel that visited Sarah in the Old Testament was a messenger. Gabriel, who came to see Mary, was a messenger. The angels who visited the shepherds were messengers. They had something to say, and they said it boldly and directly. To be a messenger is to have a position of great responsibility and great care. It is a godly calling, to put it in theological terms. This idea got me thinking about the messengers that we listen to in our world, and the messengers that we have been listening to in our world, and the power that a messenger can have. If you think about it, all that we know about the world, or at least most of what we know about the world, comes to us through messengers. Often they take the form of our political leaders, our journalists, our writers. These are the people who help us to shape our thoughts and ideas, give us a glimpse into the world, give us an idea of what's going on. Most of us don't have access to the halls of power or the labs of science or the boardrooms of giant corporations. So we really rely almost 100% on those tiny few who do, and who can package what is going on there and give it to us, which allows us to form opinions, which in turn shares not only how we act in the world, but how we treat others in the world, how we live in the world. And the more complex the world becomes, the more we rely on those messengers to give us the information we need to make the best choices we can make. I wonder sometimes if we ever stop and think about just how powerful our human messengers can be. And if you think over the past few months, think of all the messengers that we have speaking in our ears and telling us what to do. We have messengers telling us to wear masks. We have messengers telling us where we can go and what we can do. We have messengers giving us hope, vaccines on the way, and messengers tempering that hope, reminding us to shelter in place until that day comes. If you don't think our messengers are powerful, consider the aftermath of the U.S. election. When that angel in the White House chose to call the election result a fraud, some 70% of his followers listened to him and followed him and fell in line. I guess my point is that in our life, we rely on messengers for almost everything we need to know. And I wonder sometimes, do they understand the power that they have, the responsibility that they have? If I was a journalism professor, I would teach a class and I would call it, "You Are an Angel." And I would remind those future messengers that they have a huge responsibility. They can appeal to the best parts of us that need encouragement and inspiration and hope, or they can appeal to the part of us that is fearful, small, and anxious. The messages that they share can send us shivering under the covers, or they can unleash our incredible ability to rise to a challenge. They can shape our thoughts, which leads to action, which leads to consequences. I would look at all those future journalists, and I would say, ladies and gentlemen, humanity needs you to be angels. Speak the truth, even when it's difficult to speak the truth. I'm sure a very young, unwed Mary didn't want to be told she was going to have a baby. But speak the truth. Speak it without bias, without prejudice. Speak the truth. Let us know what is going on, and then equip us, empower us, and inspire us to meet the truth with the best that we have in us. But you know, it's the same with all of us. Our words matter. Not just what we say, but how we say them. Do we not all have the ability, the calling, to be angels? To speak words of encouragement? To articulate messages of hope? To tell the truth? To appeal to the best in each other? We don't need wings to do that. We just need to be led by a desire to bring out the best around us, in ourselves, in each other. That's how you begin to build a foundation for peace in the world. By the way, just as an aside, I was reading one minister's thoughts on angels, and he was asking the question, if you could hear an angel's voice speak to you, what would that angel say? And he concluded the angel would probably say, "Hurry up." Because if you look in the Bible, almost every time an angel appears, he or she begins with the words, "Make haste, hurry up, arise and go." The message of the angel, he points out, always seems to be, don't waste your time under the comforter. Get up and get moving. There's work to be done. Okay, I've hammered that point to death. And I want to make one more point about angels, and here it is. And maybe you guessed that this is where I was eventually going to get to. But when we deconstruct our angels, take away the halo and the wings and the white robe, and we make them look like us, it reminds us that we do have the ability to be angels to each other. And do we ever? I love this quote about angels. Ready? I believe friends are quiet angels who lift us to our feet when our wings have trouble remembering how to fly. It's another good one to put on your refrigerator. Listen again. I believe friends are quiet angels who lift us to our feet when our wings have trouble remembering how to fly. There's a story. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's anecdotal. It doesn't matter. But a story about someone who witnessed a remarkable thing happen on a cold December day in New York City. A boy about 7 or 8 years old was standing before a shoe store on the roadway, barefoot, peering in through the window and shivering with cold. A lady approached the young boy and asked him, "My, but you are in such deep thought staring into that window." The boy replied, "I was just asking God to give me a pair of shoes." The woman took him by the hand, went into the store, and asked the clerk to get half a dozen pairs of socks for the boy. She then asked if he could give her a basin of water and a towel. He quickly brought them to her. She took the little fellow in the back part of the store and, removing her gloves, knelt down and washed his little feet, dried them with a towel. By this time, the clerk had returned with the socks. Placing a pair upon the boy's feet, she purchased him a pair of shoes. She tied up the remaining pairs of socks and gave them to him. She patted him on the head and she said, "There, no doubt now you'll be more comfortable." As she turned to go, the astonished kid caught her by the hand, looked up in her face, and with a tear in his eye, he said, "Are you God's wife?" In the book of Hebrews, it says, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for in doing so, you may have entertained angels." Chances are there is someone in your life that you referred to as an angel. I know I have on many occasions. And usually it's not because they've done anything spectacular, but rather through small acts of kindness, grace, joy, hospitality. They seem to make the world better. They seem to make my world better. I think that's why, even though I love the cute winged angels of Christmas lore, there is something about the idea of angels looking just like everyone else that I can wrap my head around even more. Today we talk about peace. And whatever else peace may be about, in its purest form, it is the calming of the soul. It is the easing of anxiety, the withdrawing from fear, that inner feeling of contentment. Sometimes we can find that peace through prayer, through music, through nature. And sometimes we find it when we're visited by angels. When someone lets us know that they value us. When a small gesture or gift opens a doorway to love. Or when a kind word falls into our ears right when we think this day couldn't possibly get any worse. Think about this. If a great big angel, winged angel, came flying out of the clouds, perched above you and said, "You are wonderful," how would you feel? Probably a little freaked out. But if your friend sat down beside you, took your hand, smiled and said, "You are wonderful," how would you feel? Exactly. Messengers are angels from God. And if God wants to choose you or you or you on any given day to be an angel to someone else, who are we to question where your wings are? Many years ago, I'm going to finish with this. Many years ago, a university professor had his sociology class do a study of children growing up in the poorest neighborhood in Baltimore. They got the case history on 200 children living in a run-down neighborhood. They were asked to write an evaluation on each child's success or future success. In every case, the students wrote, "He or she has little to no chance." 25 years later, another sociology professor came across this earlier study. She had her students follow up on the project to see what in fact happened to those 200 children. With the exception of about 20 who had either moved away or passed away, the students learned that 176 of the remaining 180 had achieved at or above the average of success for American children. Many had gone on to become professionals, all kinds of things. The professor was astounded and decided to pursue the matter further. Fortunately, most of the men and women in the study were still living in the area, and he was able to visit many of them, and he asked them, "How do you account for your success?" In each case, the reply came with feeling, "Mrs. Jenkins." Mrs. Jenkins, the professor found out, had been a teacher at their local school in their neighborhood. Amazingly, she was still alive. So the professor sought her out and asked this old but still alert woman what magic formula she had used to pull these children out of the slums into successful achievement. The teacher's eyes sparkled, and her lips broke into a gentle smile. "It's really very simple," she said. "I just loved each and every one of them." There are angels among us. I guess that's why I personally don't need my angels to have wings. Because to me, the greatest acts of peace and hope have always come wrapped in a person, which, after all, is exactly what Christmas is all about. Amen.